Tournament scheduling. The first step for setting up your schedule is to go to Flight Schemas and Bracket Play. In Bracket Play, you're going to set up your groups and your teams. I select my flight from my drop-down, and the system tells me how many accepted teams I have in the U10 age group. Based on this number, I can use all of these teams or part of these teams. Teams per bracket, you're telling the system how many teams you want in each bracket, number of brackets. If I want to do 4 groups of 4, I'll do number of brackets 4, teams per bracket 4. Teams to auto advance. If I want one team from each bracket to advance to a semifinal, I'll leave this as 1. This can also be changed later. If I have an uneven number of teams in a bracket, and I want to put 4 in some and 5 in the other, I use the higher number and I check to allow uneven brackets. I click Create Bracketing, and I'll be able to pick and choose the teams I want in this flight. Update ranking. I've seeded these teams into this flight. When I click on Play Levels in the left-hand navigation, now I've created this flight. I've created my 4 groups, and it's telling me I have 20 teams. I can delete rows, and I can change teams here. The next step once this has been set up is I want to set my start time interval, my playtime length, my halftime length, and my intergame interval. The start time interval will be the block of time that each game takes on the schedule. In this instance, I have 2 groups of 10 teams that I set up in the bracket play. So I have a group of 5 and I have a group of 6. If I go to my bracket games template, I have a 5-team template set up already, and I have a 6-team template set up already. So I can simply go to Games and click Automatically Create Games. I don't need to go and look at my templates since these are already defined. I can click View to see the games I've just created. Back to rounds. Now I want to set up my advancing rounds. Here I have 2 groups with 11 teams. I'm going to advance 2 teams from each group. To do that, I pick Ladder Play, and I pick the flight I was working on, Boys Under 12 D4. Ladder Play, Boys Under 12 D4. Based on the number of teams I've set to auto advance, the system knows I want to go to a semifinal. I click Create Ladder Rounds. Now when I go to Boys Under 12 D4, my semifinal and my final have been set up. I click on my semifinal tab and I put in my start time interval. I'll do the same for my final. Number of group subgroup teams to advance from the final will be 0. No teams will be advancing beyond the final. In my first advancing round, I'm going to have a button down at the bottom which says Progression Map. This is how I map how the teams advance. I look at the templates available, and this is the one I want to use. A1 will play B2, B1 will play A2. Save and apply to this flight. Create games. And the system has created my games for my semifinal and my final. At this point, I'm ready to schedule my games. Scheduling a tournament is the easiest way to do it is through field usage. So if I click on Scheduling and Field Usage, I can pick the fields I want to use. In this instance, I'm scheduling U12. I want to schedule on field 1, 6, 7, 9, and 10. I click Field Scheduler and Graph New. Now I'm going to pick my flight from this drop-down, Boys Under 12 D4, and I'm going to say Get Games. The system brings in all the games I've created. These are the fields I want to schedule on. So in this instance, I want to make sure they have a Friday night game. So I drag this onto the schedule. And these games are scheduled. The system is telling you the pairings. This is A1 versus A2, A3 versus A4. Now I want to look for my B group. B1 versus B6, B2 versus B5. Those are my Friday night games. Now I'll move down to Saturday. Looking at my available blocks of time. Move this game down to Edinburgh, 8:45, field 9, and I'll continue this process. If I don't like a game I've scheduled, I can drag it off the schedule, and it becomes an unscheduled game. Once I've scheduled my games, I can go back, and I can go to Publish, and I can look at the games I've scheduled to make sure I like what I've scheduled. Here's my Friday night games that I've scheduled.